morning.
Hello.
Good morning,
Hey.
Mr. Hat. How are you? I can only see you from here up.
Oh, there you are.
There you
Okay,
are.
there I am.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. I in the back of my mind, I have to remember that I have my coffee pot on the stove, and it's
Okay.
going to start boiling in a few minutes. So,
Okay.
remind me in a couple of minutes. These days, the memory is gone.
I
But
know.
sometimes it's good not to remember things,
Well,
and
I think we're all,
sometimes when things that I don't want to remember come to mind, like whatever life, um, then I look at it and say, I don't want to think about that. Let
yeah.
me Get me out of here. Tell me a little bit about your work, and yes, I really like the work, the concept of getting the city, and is the city council and the county folks working in this concept of harvesting the rainwater.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
But
Hmm.
we're working on it. Um, it's a slow process. So I'm on a bunch of committees and we've got a little toehold. They're looking at doing a biochar pilot project. So the biochar project, if it comes to fruition, would look at composting and biochar and charged biochar and composting, I hope. And then prove to the city that they can use less water by doing that. They're not into saving water, they're into not using water.
Oh,
And
so
so
that
that's
okay.
so we're
That's a
we're
different.
starting with that and then trying to
Mm,
get them to understand the importance of keeping the water we get.
well, that's part of the capturing of the water. But I guess I mean, obviously, that it's all about everything together at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. They don't.
and 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 the idea of composting to enhance organic matter in the soils where the water is going to find rest makes a lot of sense, because the more depth you have is going to hold more water.
Yep.
Although depends also on what kind of soils you have um, in the surroundings. Now, Spokane is kind of like a rural area, isn't it? Outside
Um,
of the city.
Spokane is a city. We're
Yes, but
about
the out
250,000.
right.
Um, and I am working inside the city. The
Hmm.
outskirts are rural, and we do have a lot of farming. The Palouse
Yeah,
area is really
yeah.
special.
I've been
Um,
there.
yeah, and
Hmm.
and
I've
it's
driven.
just outside the city.
It's
So
gorgeous. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember. I was visiting some farms in Washington one time. I had some folks that I had worked with in California that moved to that region to do a farm with blueberries and all kinds of
yeah.
organic, regenerative, and all of it. And then,
Are they
so
still
the
here?
I think they would be. It was I I lost contact with them, but I would only need to ask my wife to remind me of the name of the farm and the folks, and then I can look for them. I have no memory. No, but the reason I bring it up is because it's always very convenient for the cities to work with the counties, so that it becomes a regional effort, in the sense that you want that water to go somewhere. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't have to stay all inside the city, because you can't. And like what we do here in Davis with the county, and the county uh, control, flood control
Hmm.
agency. And so there are districts that are doing flood control, districts that are doing now, some of them are like irrigation districts, and the irrigation districts are starting to do recharge efforts. So they are beginning to
Nice.
identify you're familiar with that, and yeah. So that's I just thought that that may be part of the strategy to. Um,
Eventually, yeah.
uh-huh.
There's a little competition here between the city and the county. Uh, so there's that. I've been working with the Spokane Conservation District, and
Uh-huh.
they don't quite get it either.
Huh.
They've been sort of, oh, yes, 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 it's great. We understand. We love it. We want to work with you. We're interested in this too. And then they don't do anything. So I'm still
I
working,
see.
still trying to get them to
Ah,
actually do something.
okay.
It just everything takes time, you know? That's the problem.
It's more than time. Um, is that is that the sense that um, i i hi, I was walking around and I think my internet changed for a second.
Oh,
Hi, are
okay.
you there with me?
Yep, I
Yeah,
am. Yeah.
yeah.
Don't forget your
Well,
coffee.
that's why I came out. I just turned it off. Uh-huh. And so, um, well, tell me more if you want to share, or if you like, maybe I can share some things that we're working with. And I think that is part of that exchange here in Village, which is again this sense that only had we had 1,000 village homes throughout the
Yeah.
cities, would be capturing a lot of water.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
and we
and this
would
is
have,
something.
and also the greenery is really remarkable on a per square foot or uh, acre basis inside a suburban area. The green material, the biomass material that has grown
Yes.
because of the water harvesting
Yeah.
um, is significant. It also means that we have to spend summer irrigation water a lot on keeping this vegetation alive. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a trade-off, but still. And then
Have you had to bring in water, add
well,
additional water?
we have two sources right now: municipal water that is purchased, and also since 2015 a well. So
Okay.
we drilled a well that provides water to maybe 30 to 40% of the water demand that is communal water demand. Yeah, residential, obviously, that's independent. Yeah,
Right.
and so that's decent. So, and to that extent, in fact, our friend from Santa Barbara was here with me visiting several months ago. Um, Remind me of his name.
Carl.
Yes, Carl was traveling, and then he came and we spent an afternoon in my house, and
Yes.
that was nice to be with him. And what he was most impressed was that he asked me at one point. I turn on the fan that I have behind me, um, and he asked me if I had been running my air conditioning, and I said no, I don't. In fact, all this summer I didn't run the air conditioner, and then so because he's been very interested in the architecture of these
Yes.
homes. Because what Mike Corbett did here was, in fact, Village Homes celebrated 50 years
Yep.
a month ago.
Yep.
Um, uh, did you see the film that I did?
Yeah.
Did you
Yep.
see the
Yep.
Did you see the film of Mike Corbett dancing with his daughter?
I don't think I did. I think when I looked at it, it was just before the event, and I haven't gone
Uh-huh.
back to it after the event to see it.
Okay, take a look. It was a session. We had music, people, food, Mike and Judy Corbett, and amazing. I mean, just to see guys created
Yeah.
something like these. Um, so that was nice. And then, well, so in the city of Davis, eventually they kind of learned that what the Village Homes was doing made a lot of sense, mostly because in the late 70s, there was a huge storm, or maybe it was 82. There was a big 82 winter. There was so much water that they were able to channel some water from the streets into Village Homes, to give a little
Oh,
bit of
mitigate.
break to the municipal system.
Yeah.
And after that, the city, um, went ahead and started to build these ponds, uh, on the northern sides of the perimeter, uh, that became nature ponds, and the
Oh,
ponds become the place where most of the storm water that is generated uh, in the area flows north into these ponds. And so throughout the winter, the ponds are full filled. There are geese flying, there are turtles, there are toads, there's a lot of activity. And there's three of these ponds in the west, the central, and eastern part of the city. And so that was kind of part of the development. And then when there is too much water, the pond a an exit that leads to canals that are part of the city and that take the water out into a floodplain
oh,
that is a dedicated area uh, of the floodplain of the Yolo Basin,
okay.
and that's where the county and the city can work on projects so that, uh, because water doesn't belong to anybody, and so you just have to share it when it's in your domain, in your limits, and then have a place to go. So that's kind of an experience I wanted to share with you.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I think our city is a ways away from that. I'm just trying to get them to understand the importance of saving water instead of uh, trying to reclaim it after it's gone. And
Hmm.
that's another way of conserving water, because
Yes.
we've worked really hard to have people use less water, and that's not really effective. Although in
No.
truth, the people
Mm.
who use the most water here in Spokane, there's only a few of them, a handful actually, and they use like 6 or 7 times what everybody else uses, and they're willing to pay for it. And so
You
breaking
mean
that
is
is
this
really,
urban residents or agriculture you meant?
I know they're not agriculture. They're businesses of different kinds.
I see.
Or
Okay.
it could be the universities would fall into
I
this
see.
category, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So getting the
Right.
universities to think about meadows instead of lawns and to do some other things that would change their water use.
Yes. Yes.
So we're kind of, yeah, doing that.
Uh,
And this is where the biochar experiment comes in too, because
yeah.
if that works in the park area, in a park-like area, then it's something the city could adopt throughout all its maintenances. We have a bunch of golf courses which also use water. And I don't know if
Hmm.
you know about Dan Donnelly, but he's been working with biochar and golf courses for 20 years. And we had him
Mm.
on, I don't know, a few months ago. But we're hoping to work with him and parks if they want to do that, to
Mm.
begin to think about using biochar as a water conservation method. So it's just all these baby steps to shift that thinking from not using water at all to not having to use water because it's already in the soil. And that's a big shift
Yeah.
for a lot of people. It's just not where they normally go.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
so
right.
we're trying to make
Hmm.
the case that that's really an important thing.
Mm.
Um, And then I think a lot of things will flow from that. And this came out of a proposal that I gave to the city. So many years ago, not that many years ago, 2021, I guess, the city put a lot of effort into a sustainable action plan. And it's huge, it's
Mm.
very thorough, it's really well done, it's a lot of detail, it's carbon focused, um, and they've not done anything about it. So I'm now on a committee that's been charged to actually do something about this. And they had like 200
Mm.
goals that they wanted to achieve. And so I wrote a 10-page paper saying if if you just saved water, you would impact these 30 goals by just doing that. It would have an
Mm.
impact on it. And that's where the biochar
Mm.
idea came from, which was a thought I tagged on at the end, the last page of the
Yeah.
paper. But you
Mm.
know, you go where you can go. Several people on the committee were familiar with biochar, so that landed in a resonant space, and so that's what we're doing. But I'm still working to
Yeah.
get people to understand the whole concept of the biotic pump and how important each piece is. You have to plant, you have to have water in the soil, you have to have the land able to hold water. All those three things have to be there in order for the pump to
Mm.
work. Yeah, so we're
Right.
working on that.
Yeah. Where is the biocharge being generated at?
Well, I'm not sure what we're going to do because we haven't committed to that, but there is
Okay.
a fairly new company. It's called Qualterra, and it's been around for a while, but they just got a huge infusion, $270 million, something like that. So they bought some land. They've created a biochar kiln. It's not very big, actually, although I think they want to make it bigger. Uh, but they use the heat off that kiln to heat their greenhouse. And
Mm-hmm.
and their idea, as
Mm-hmm.
near as I understand it, is
Yeah.
to generate plants. So if you want to plant wheat, they will give you, 100,000 wheat plants in containers that hold biochar, and you just plant those containers in the ground.
Oh.
And they've had real success with it. It's
Oh, but
increased their yields. It's done all that kind of stuff. They're not really thinking about the soil, actually. They're just using biochar as a medium. Um, and they're
I
not really
see.
thinking about the ground that the plants are being planted in, particularly. They're not charging their biochar, so they say, "Oh yeah, it goes brown before it goes green," um, which it doesn't
Mm.
need to do. So there's some limitations with this group, but they are here.
I
They are
see.
local. They are making biochar. They do have all of the capacity to do evaluations of projects and that kind of stuff because they do a lot of research on their own.
Yeah.
And the city is also already buying some biochar from them. So it would be
Yeah.
an easier shift than probably anything else. So that's the
Mm.
most likely candidate for the biochar. There are some problems with them for sure, but they are here. They are what we have. You go with
Well,
what you got.
it is also it is obviously uh, known that it's all about the soil characteristics that you start with, um, and the type of soils that you have to work with in terms of their water holding capacity to
Right.
begin with, their organic matter content to start with, and so forth. Um, eh, when you bring amendments, composted materials or biochar or other biologicals, they help in active accelerating some breakdowns. But at the end of the day, it's really the soil structure that you want to have like a soil mapping of where is the water going to go. The idea that you're going to put biochar in these fields and that's going to make them better for water absorption is obviously determinant by the soil type that you're working with. And so that's kind of why I was wondering if there is a bigger picture in terms of looking at the dynamic in the urban setting, and how is the water currently moving, and is it all subterranean and goes into water treatment facilities, or does the city already have water canals that find their way into rural open canals or the river?
No, we don't have canals. The They are not really aware or involved or engaged in understanding how the water wants to flow across the land. That is a next step. I keep talking to them about the possibilities. We have a guy who's part of our group who has created a digital way of looking at land. So on a computer, you can look at the land and see with his tool the overlay of how both sun and water move across the land. So you can see what the land
Oh,
wants to do, but
oh,
they've
I'd like to
not
see
really
that.
expressed an interest in that yet. Um,
Huh.
but I do talk about it. Eventually, it will take hold. Um, and I do think that there is some possible conversation on that level. I've gotten a little bit impatient. I've been trying to be very gentle with everybody and not kind of steamroll people with my enthusiasm. But the Spokane River ran dry for a short time this year, and that shook everybody
Mm,
up. And so I
mm,
suggested that if we choose, we
yeah,
could take 3 months and assess the entire city, all 60 square miles of it, in this
yeah,
digital format, understand where water wants to be, and then then spend the next 6 to 9 months making places for the water to be when it comes. Um,
yeah,
so that in 3 years we would actually see a huge difference in our city and the greenness of our city by doing that. But I've had no
yeah.
takers.
Well, it's also important to understand the watershed river um,
Yes.
as
Well,
a
and there's some
watershed.
interesting things about that. Because the water guy that everybody listens to, who is a wonderful man, loves his work, has been involved in understanding water flow in this area in our aquifers and rivers for 30 years or more. And he's a techie, so he likes to figure out how to model things and do algorithms that will put the information he's got into the models he's got. And they've been really focused on snowpack as a way of gauging how much water is in the river. And that's become
Mhm.
difficult because we're not getting the snowpack we used to get. It's coming more as rain and less as snow. And they don't
Yes.
have rain in their models, and they don't understand. Um, he does do underground water, so he understands aquifers, he understands underground streams, but he does not understand the water carrying capacity of the soil itself and how important
Mm,
that is. So I'm really hoping to engage with him in the next
interesting.
few weeks to see if he's interested in exploring that. And if he is,
Mm,
if he would be interested in seeing if there's a way of putting that piece into his modeling. If he could do that, that would totally
yeah.
transform how we understand water and soil in this city.
I was
So
going to ask you, where is the state government located in Washington? In Spokane?
Olympia,
In
no,
Olympia. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
they're on the other
it,
side of the mountains. They're 700 miles away.
it would be interesting to know if the Department of Water Resources in Washington, the one who uh, manages the reservoirs, if they already know that what we were dealing with in California for the last 20 years is coming to them pretty soon. And
Yeah,
what California has been doing from the perspective of management of the reservoirs is to change the models to understand that the cycle has changed in terms of how much snow comes and when it comes, what is the capacity of the snow to become permanent snow for 6, 7 months in terms of water content, and also to recognize that the reservoirs were going to be filled sooner than they were designed for. The reservoirs were
Oh,
designed to be filled towards June, July, when the snowpack has melted, and then the reservoirs could deliver the water for July, August, September, and October, and that way you have a nice year round management.
right,
Now they are having to release water earlier because depending on if there's too much snow or too
right.
much rain that is getting down into the reservoirs and there is a snowpack, now they have to predict differently. So it's a really important it's like it's so regional and obviously statewide as well. It'll be interesting to visit with those folks maybe for you at the Department of Water Resources.
Yeah.
Sense of what they're thinking.
One of the things this gentleman shared with me, though, that is really concerning is an article that talks about this very issue about the fact that it's not so much snow, it's more rain, and why the rivers haven't been filling um, with
Mm.
that rain in a way that they thought it would. And they've decided that it's because the plants are stealing water from the river. And that's really a bad line of thought because, yes, the plants are taking up more water. That's absolutely right. But we need it in order for them to trans-evaporate so that it comes back down again. That little piece is not in there. They see plants taking, they don't see them giving. They don't understand their part in the
Well, that
cycle. And
sure.
that's really dangerous. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that well, that you know where is dangerous is in, and this is just a general broad comment is dangerous in general in society when you are ignorant of
Well,
science,
but
and
you
and
see,
you
they
and
don't
you
feel they're
create
ignorant. They don't feel because they've been trained in
well,
science. It's the
well,
new science that they don't
uh-huh.
understand. They
Well, that's
haven't
kind of
continued
that's
their
part of
education.
ignorance. I mean,
Yeah.
ecologists will never say what you heard.
Right.
Most likely was said by an engineer.
Right. Exactly. But that's where policy gets shaped. So it's really critical that we nip that one in the bud and they begin to
Yeah.
understand the value of that. That's why
Mhm.
I'm hoping to talk with him and get him to understand the value of water in the soil and how that happens. You know, one of the things that will be interesting about that, because water is in the holes in the soil and the soil has good structure, but there's another place that water resides in the soil and it's just as important, and that's in the bodies of all the living things.
Yes,
So that
of
is a
course.
huge amount of water. And
Yes.
it's not water that's immediately accessible, but that becomes accessible as those critters expire, their water is released. So it's a real important piece of this is that there is life in the soil, that there are living things holding
Mm,
that water, even though it's
yeah.
not immediately accessible. So there's just a lot of learning, that's kind of
Yes.
new. It's not been around for, more than 10 years in some cases, and they just don't know. So,
Um, I mean, it's so you talked about. Um, is in soil ecology books. I mean, it's
yeah,
really
but they haven't
interesting.
put it together.
It's very interesting because
Yeah.
um,
I've
the
had people who have worked on the river for years just
yes,
be huffy with me. I have disturbed 40 years of science as they know it. And then we sat down and I said, well, where do rivers come from? We know that rivers come from springs outside from the sides of hills. Out of the
yeah.
dirt comes water. We know that. So where does that water come from? Well, he'd never thought about that before. But it
I
made
see.
perfect sense when you go back there. Sure, okay, now they can integrate it. Now it makes sense. But it took me many lunches for that little piece of
Wow.
information to kind of sink in as,
To sink.
well, yeah, it's
Okay.
not that we didn't know, didn't have the information, we didn't put it together.
Well, I will share with you that these, and I don't mean to use it in a derogatory way, because I'm as ignorant as anyone else on 100 million topics, because I don't know the topic, but to the extent that we have the ability to think and rationalize and learn to at least make a criteria on your own of what, unless it's too complicated and it's rocket science. But biology is not that complicated in that sense. And
Right.
here in YOLO, where I am, we're dealing with ignorance in that the people who are in the board of supervisors or the groundwater sustain agencies, they are basically water purveyors. They have been in the business of irrigation districts and flood control and water and delivering water, and now they were given the responsibility of groundwater. And so they want to treat groundwater as another supply source.
Yes.
And they are not even, they don't, and they know that we have some real issues with overdraft in some specific areas, and they have been looking the other way until we've had enough. Well, there's really a farmer woman who has been relentless. It always takes a farmer woman to be relentless and do something to get us to this point where the county board of supervisors last week, 2 weeks ago, extended a moratorium on drilling new wells in these areas of concern. Um, and so that alone has been a success, but it just becomes an issue of it's not just about the water, it's about the land, it's about the
Yes,
resources, it's
yes,
about the
yes.
watersheds.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's
Well,
about
and
the
that's,
kind of, but it's also about the kind of farming that they're bringing in. We have these Australian, these industrial olive plantation system that is horrible and is intensively pumping, and the water around that area has a lot of boron in the subsoils, so it's pulling boron onto the surface. And basically, in 25 years, they're going to pull their stakes and leave behind the weeds and the boron.
right.
And but that's the context. The context is that is destroying the land. So
Yeah. Yep.
again, the water is part of the land, and so that's a different issue. I'm going to leave
Well,
you
the
with a
things are
thought.
so intertwined.
I wanted to leave you with a thought, and maybe we'll get together to kind of follow up on that. I'm really interested and wrote a number of letters on the works of Aldo Leopold.
Of
And
who?
Aldo Leopold.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. He's wonderful.
And I don't know if you had an opportunity to read what we produced. You do get my letters still
I do.
sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I don't
uh,
always read them, but yes, I do.
right. The collection with Aldo Leopold is really fascinating because it has a lot to offer us in a century later. Uh, he when he was writing his thoughts on land ethics and ecological conscience and biotic pyramids and biotic farming and all of that, he was way ahead of his time. And what is remarkable is that the mindset that he was very critical of at the time of what he calls the economic American, it hasn't changed and has only gotten worse.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the effort of educating folks to develop an ecological conscience is like more critical than ever before. And
Yep.
so I dedicated several months to Leopold. If you're curious, you like to read it, and there's some poetry there too. And maybe we can elevate the conversation that level of ethics.
So one of the things that I've been kicking around lately, and Carl and I have just started to talk about, is what's the problem we're dealing with? Um, I see so many wonderful people doing amazing work, and it feels like everybody's in their own silo, and they've got this focus, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that everybody's separate. There's not anything cohesive or unifying, except we all want to save the planet. But what does that mean? So I went back. This is my writing for today. A number of years ago, when this sort of first started to surface in a big way, it was called global warming. And there was a guy named Frank Lunt, who was a Republican marketeer, and he very strongly suggested that that term be changed from global warming to climate crisis. And that's what they did. And when they did that, they confused the whole thing, because the climate crisis talks about the myriad of things that are happening. And everybody's like crazy trying to do this little piece or that little piece or this little piece. But actually, the biggest issue is global warming, quite literally. That's absolutely true. Now, we got caught in the carbon aspect of that, and saying, oh, yeah, the warming is here and the warming is horrible and it's all the fossil fuels. It's also all their fault. We've got to stop burning fossil fuels. And that's part of it. It's not sufficient. And we've not made a great deal of headway in that regard either. We can't really
Right.
point to any real successes, which should tell
Mhm.
us that maybe we're not doing something correctly. When
Let
you
me mention
start
something.
to think about warming as a global issue, then cooling kind of comes to the surface as a possible solution. And that
Mm,
starts to pull everybody together. That what we're doing is different ways of understanding how to how to cool the planet, to dampen the amount of warming that is happening, and to understand the human causes of that warming, of which fossil fuels are a part, but they're not the whole thing, and maybe not even the worst part, actually. There
no.
are killing of the soil, are creating hot, hard surfaces, may be way more damaging than fossil fuels in the long
Mm,
term. And I'm really wanting to have this conversation with people to see if it has legs, if there are, it's my belief that if we really focused on warming, that we could begin to see levers of change. One of the things that Carl and I have uncovered, which I do believe is a lever, is developers, because we're as long as we're on the planet, we're building, and we all have to have homes. Every critter has a home. Every critter builds a home. So there's nothing wrong with building a home. What's wrong is we don't build it in a way that keeps the earth cool. If we included that in our building, then building becomes a solution, not a problem.
mm,
And that's where Village Homes comes in. It's an
mm.
example of building in a way to cool the earth.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um, I would,
that's where my head is right now. Those are the kinds of things that I'm
yeah.
playing with.
Um, Wonderful. It's great to see you, and best of if you think I can support you in any way, let me know.
Okay.
Um, I really still feel that, like Aldo Leopold said back in his day, humanity had developed the ethics of interpersonal relations and as a community, but it's never developed the ethics of the land, and the land being everything. The land is the structure where
Are
everything
you,
is part of. Are you there?
yeah, are you familiar with my Earth Values work?
Yeah, and I think that um, I'm going back to Aldo Leopold because these men really left us a legacy to think about, that I feel we need to create a story that feels like folks can fall in love with nature as a way to learn to respect it in the sense that needs to be understood to mm, do good,
Yeah.
do good, do good in so many different ways, but always with that in mind. Is this good for me only? Is it good for my neighborhood? Is it good for the land?
Right. But he
Yeah.
had to do really great harm before he got there.
Who's that?
If I have my story correctly, his career was wolf hunting.
No, no. Leopold was a forester. Maybe you
Yeah.
haven't remembered his works.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I do remember his work, but I also I have to go back and research that story because there was a gentleman who was strongly nature based, but he got into this um, tussle with a wolf who was creating havoc for humans, and he decided he was going to kill him. And when he did, he realized what he had done, and that kind of gave him the commitment to not do that kind of thing and to understand the role of the wolf. And it's, yeah,
Yes. Yes. In fact, that was part of his understanding and learning because
that's
when
right.
he graduated from the Yale School of Forestry in 1909, and then he went to work for the Forest Service to be in Arizona and New Mexico. And there is where he really gets an education. Then he understands, like what you were saying about, because there were so many things that they were doing wrong in
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of
yeah.
the way that the foresters were managing the forest.
Oh,
And
they
he
still are.
realizes,
They still
oh,
are.
they
The
still are.
gaslighting from the Forest
Yeah.
Service is just
But the
incredible.
wonderful thing with this fellow is that he understood and learned from, and then realized, no, 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 this is about
Absolutely.
this pyramid,
Absolutely.
and he has a biotic pyramid that is really excellent reading because it just gives you that biological process. Anyway, I leave you with that because I think it's more than just an intellectual conversation. I think that bringing some of his concepts forward may be a way to get folks to at least say, "Oh, wow, that's what you mean by land ethic." And
Yeah.
then we're talking about everything, the insects and the animals and the waters and the
Yep.
trees
No,
and all
it's
of that.
all part of the conversation. Yep.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And thanks for
Thank
taking
you
the
very
time. I
much.
really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Kai.
Bye. I will post this, by the way, if that's okay.